Hi, and welcome to another episode of Nursing Your Way to Wealth, where a mental health nurse and an accountant talk about wealth creation, personal development, and financial independence in the UK to help you live the life you deserve.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to episode 40 of the podcast, which is mad. And today we're talking probably about quite a pertinent subject. And I think as many of us kind of go throughout our careers, there's going to be lots of potential job changes, potential new opportunities get put in front of you. And so today's episode is really just talking about what the impact is of changing jobs, some of the practicalities, probably thinking that, salary isn't everything when it comes to a job and almost looking at compensation in the round, not just, your the monthly salary that's going to hit your bank account, but things such as, the culture, the impact on you and your, I guess, your stress levels by starting something new, the commuting. Both Alex and I have got lots of experience of changing jobs, so can happily talk through some of our personal experiences. But I think from my perspective as a kind of starter, I think it's one of those things that, and I guess with the title of the changing jobs, it's probably more the way I'm thinking of it is changing jobs in different companies or different employers, more so than in it within a company. Some of the best things I've done is move company, and or some of the most challenging things have been to move company as well. I think, moving around is very good for your development. You learn to be more adapt, you can adapt to different environments. Changing jobs, just you do tend to get pay rises or get better benefits by changing around. But I think that does come at cost. I've certainly found myself feeling a lot more stressed and frustrated when you kind of go from one company knowing how almost just how the operations work, you comfortable with what you're doing and you can start to, adding value in other ways, and then you decide to change company and then you're kind of back to square one of, oh, I don't actually know how what the culture's like around sending emails or what kind of the meeting structures are like or how to retrieve the information I need to do a basic task. That kind of thing, like, I found very frustrating. It can sometimes be quite detrimental and become very stressful because you're almost thinking, oh, okay, I've taken this new job. You go in and you've gone through a rigorous interview process. You're feeling there's a bit of pressure on your shoulders that you've got to deliver, and then it's like, oh, struggling to find the basic things that you used to be able to do in a blink of an eye in your old place. Um, but yeah, I've had very really mixed experiences. I think I'm generally I enjoy changing company. I like seeing different places. Um, but I mean, I think I'm at the point in my career where I'm really settled with my employer. I really like working for them and see myself there for a long time, which is quite unusual. I've not really had that before. Um, but yeah, Alex, it'd be good to get some of your thoughts on changing employer, some of your experiences as well.
Sure, and I feel like we are both what are we millennials, right? So I think for millennials and like Gen Z and below, I think a lot of us in this kind of boat will have many jobs, many careers over our life. I think the days where you have one career for life are just long gone. I don't think that exists, particularly in our culture. If you can find a good DB scheme outside of kind of the NHS, police, fire service, etc., then it's absolutely worth holding on to. But I don't think jobs are designed now for someone to come in at 18 and retire when they're 55, 60. I just don't think there's the longevity there. And I think a lot of a lot of millennials move for a whole host of different reasons. I mean, yeah, Alex, you've mentioned a couple of them, but myself, I start to think about moving jobs when I find what I'm doing to be quite repetitive. And my mum once told me that all jobs are repetitive and get used to it. But I feel like, I mean, with me doing nursing, I could do loads of different roles within that umbrella. And you, Alex, you've said before there are loads of different facets to accounting, and I think it's true for most qualifications, certainly professional ones as well. You can always move around within that wider box. But I always think about like I never want to go into a job and be like not bored, but not progressing, and just feel like I'm stagnant with something. I always like to be learning stuff. I always like to learn from my colleagues, learn about new areas of nursing, etc. So that will be the primary thing that I move for. Second is personal growth and my development of my career. But I also think about loads of other things within moving jobs. So I have a checklist of stuff. So first up for me is salary and pension. What percentages will they put in? Where am I going to be at? Because I never want to go backwards. I always want to feel like I'm going forwards. I also think about commuting time because in nursing, I can't. It's rare that you get a full remote job apart from like phone assessments and stuff. And I'm not about that. I'd rather be on the floor doing things, seeing people, and not just stuck behind a desk somewhere. So I always think about commute, how long that'll be. I set myself limits for how far I'm willing to travel, and I just won't look outside that. I've commuted a long way before, and I know we've talked about it, and I'm just not prepared to put myself through it. I think about other benefits, other kind of the other stuff that your employer can offer, whether it's a therapy allowance or it's discounts at certain retailers or it's a blue light card in my kind of thing, or benefits around kind of maternity, paternity leave or annual leave holiday, depending on what area of life you're in, you can gain a huge amount that's not just linked back to your salary as well. So are those things, Alex, you take into account, or is it broadly similar for the jobs you've had?
I mean, I think that's a really good list, and I say I'm similar. I think from my almost acid test as well for moving is am I learning? And certainly say with changing roles within a company, it's like am I still learning and where am I going to work on my kind of development areas and then moving into a role like that. And I think as well for me, it's company culture. I think when have been at a company for a few years, you really start to feel what it's like. And I think when that doesn't resonate with me anymore or doesn't resonate, that's a sign for me to move company. But I think then, yeah, in terms of those decision points on what are the factors to consider, yeah, completely agree with you. I think like the salary and benefits and pension, and I think often even if you have a lower salary but higher pension contributions from the employer or potentially bonus options or shares or something, it's important to look at it all in as one and not just focus on the salary number. And even getting benefits, like I know my partner, she works for Sky, and one of the benefits there is you get free TV and broadband, which I mean, not that we would get the full TV package anyway, because it's about 120 quid a month, but even like broadband is I think 35, 40 pounds a month. And that's something that you get given for free. So you're eliminating some of your utility cost. Um, and yeah, I think commute is a big one. Um, and it needs to be, and I think it's type of commute and cost of commute, because I always look at almost what's the profitability of my employment, because you could earn a massive salary, but actually if you're going to be spending four, five, £600 a month on trains to get there, that's, you know, £1,200 a month before tax that you've got to earn before you get that. So it's really considering that element, and also I guess it's the impact on you as a being able to have the energy and operate outside of work. And if your job is relentless and stressful, and you've got a long commute on top of that, there's very little like decompression time. Or if you're then just exhausted at the end of I guess the end of the day, you like rush whichever, you know, I guess there's more propensity to eat junk food. There's no time to go and exercise. You just need to get into bed. I don't know. I think it can have a real impact on that area of your life as well. So yeah,
Definitely. The one thing that springs to mind when you mention all those things is what's the human cost to you? Because if you are working, I don't know, 12 hours plus, 10 hours plus a day, and it's mega high stress for mega high money, because if people are paying you a lot of money, they're going to want their kind of pound of flesh, as it were, for it. They will work you hard for that kind of salary. And then if you're coming home and you're absolutely exhausted, you're less likely to take care of yourself. You're more likely to perhaps, I don't know, use alcohol as a method of coping with that, and that's only going to end one way. But I think it's all of that you need to take into account. You have to have a life as well as working. It can't be your sole 100% of what you do is just work. So you are not just Alex the accountant. You're you're partly an accountant. You're partly a partner. You're partly someone who like travels and eats delicious food. And you said yourself you're a chef as well. You can't be 100% of all of those things. You have to break it down. And if working is taking, I don't know, 95% of your energy, it doesn't leave you anything left for life. And I think with that, the balance is wrong. And I just eventually your body and mind will tell you that enough is enough. Like your body will keep the score of that. Your stress levels, especially cortisol, will rise as a baseline, and then your body's just battling that the whole time while you're trying to do a double stressful job. And there are some health risks to that as well. So I really would question those things if all you're chasing is a massive salary. Think about the entirety of what it costs you. Alex, can I ask you a different kind of question? You mentioned about moving jobs for personal growth and learning. If you say you found another job, say job B, and the job you have now is job A, if like everything was similar across both of the things, but you got paid, say, I don't know, 5% less, 10% less, but there was a really good opportunity for growth within the new company over the next 5 years, would you consider that? Or would you say, no, I need the same salary or I'm not moving?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I've done something similar to that in the past. So when I was finished my grad program and I worked for a year then at Sky as a kind of financial analyst, I got the chance to go. I got an offer to go and work at there was one at Deloitte and also KPMG consulting businesses, and the salaries were, I would say they're broadly similar across Sky and Deloitte, a little bit more in KPMG, but not mega. But there was other options to go. I could have continued where I was and probably got, my natural pay rise kind of during the annual cycle would have been more. But I just felt the opportunity to go and learn more at Deloitte, I would have learned more quickly, seeing lots of different businesses and seeing different types of business problem. That was more valuable than just a few £1,000s extra a year doing this similar thing. So I think it is important, and that I kind of did that in that example, and I think I'm a better professional having done that. And I think I've always tried to take a bit more of a longer term view with the kind of broadening out my skill set with a view that the more things I've done earlier on will mean I'll be a much better professional and finance person in the future, rather than almost just living the same career, the 1 year, but I've done it 10 times. I'd like to have done 10 different years over 10 years.
Yeah, not
So,
repetitive of the same year round and round. Yeah.
yeah, that's my view. How about you? Are you similar or?
No, I am. And the one thing that I got from you there is you've given yourself range. So you're not repeating the same year 10 times. You've done 10 years worth of work, but you've gained 10 unique years worth of experience. And that's worth more to other people, other employers. And it gives you an ability to apply for not probably 10 times the amount of jobs, but certainly it gives you a lot more scope to apply for things that perhaps aren't 100% your skill set, but you know enough to get an interview, and then you probably will have a good shot at getting the job. And I think it's partly a confidence thing. And I read some stats somewhere that men are more likely to apply for jobs if they meet like 50 or 60% of the
Yeah,
criteria, and women are like 90 something plus. I'm 100% on that boat. I would obviously, there's no harm in applying. All you can do is either you win and you get the job or you learn from it. There's no downside for me.
yeah. I agree, and I think it's a good message actually, because there are tons of jobs, and you read the job descriptions on LinkedIn or whatever, and it's as if there's probably like one person on the planet that has got that could tick every box on that. And I think my experience having applied for lots of jobs and then subsequently got them is the the work you're doing on a day to day isn't really the stuff that was written in the job description. And I think, yeah, there's one. I think if you see an opportunity that you think you're going to be good at, then I think, yeah, just go for it. Interview practice is all, worst case, you go to interviews, you don't get them, but you've had some, you know, good practice to then take on to the next one. And I always find them a bit of it's quite nice because I think when you've got to go to an interview, you've got to prepare, so you need to look back at your accomplishments. And I think I often find it gives me a bit of a confidence boost, almost seeing and reviewing what you've done in your career, and actually, I've done quite a lot of things, and I feel good about myself for I've done that, because I think it's easy to get lost in the day to day of just doing the same old routine, and then suddenly, 12, 18 months have gone past and you don't feel like you've done anything. But then actually you look back and you think, wow, actually, I've done so much here and I'm really valuable. So I often find it gives me a bit of an ego boost as well, in a narcissistic way.
No, but that is true, and that confidence will show in the interview. So if you have like you interview 10 people and one person is confident in their ability, not arrogant, but confident in what they can provide and the value they can bring, and the other 9 people are not, you can pretty much put money on who's going to get the job at that point. And the other thing I do with interviews is, for some reason, and I don't know why, I feel I don't feel nerves when I go into interviews because I treat it differently. I don't treat it like it's a kind of a panel meeting and I'm the victim in the middle and I'm just going to get a barrage of questions. Is I'll do it on purpose. I'll form. No, I mean, normally interviews it's not just one on one. It's a couple of people and me. I'll form a bit of a circle and I'll ask, "Do you mind if we just move some of these tables around and we sit as a circle and not have this barrier between us?" And I've moved desks before to form kind of triangles or circles. And I view it as a conversation between potential colleagues. And it's, does this person know enough to work in this industry? And if not, can they learn it? Do they have the propensity to learn it? And B, probably more important, is do you fit or will you fit with the team that we currently have? Because the last thing you want to do is spend all this time and money hiring a new person and going for all the checks, etc., to find that they just don't gel with the team that you have, and then this person ends up leaving and you're back at square one. So it's not failed me to say like, can we sit in a triangle shape or a circle shape? And another thing I'll say right off the bat at the beginning is I might know the answer, but because of the situation I'm in, it might not come to mind. I probably do know the answer, and if you think I'm just about there, but I've not given you everything you need, just ask me another question around it and just prompt me for the answer that you need, because I'll guarantee you that I'll probably know it. And if I don't, I'll say to them as well, look, I don't know the answer. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'll just tell you I don't know. And all that I would ask is at the end of the interview, you teach me, you educate me on the answer of what it should be.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I like the idea about moving the tables around, to
Yeah, it's a bit bold.
remove the barrier. But I'm similar. I guess when you finish university and you're trying to get on the career ladder, I think you've got, I was certainly a lot more nervous, and there was a lot more riding on if I did or didn't get a job. But certainly as I've progressed, I'm much more in the position of I don't need the job. It would be nice, but I and similar to your point on the culture fit, it's almost like, do I like the people that I'm interviewing or who are interviewing me, and do I get a good feeling from them? Because I've been in interviews and it's like I've literally, you go through the door and you see them, it's like I don't, yeah, like no way, I just don't like you.
You
And
listen to your gut.
yeah, and it's that gut feel. And interestingly as well, just on the culture point, I have a friend of mine. He recently got a job offer, and he's doing interviews online. and it's for a big advertising agency. And before they offered in, they offered in the job, and he said, "Oh, before I accept it, I'd like to come into the office and just spend a bit of time with the team and speaking to people." And that was really interesting because I think up to that point he'd seen the Zoom interviews, only ever done it online, and then to go in to then see what it's actually like, and you know look his manager and colleagues in the whites of their eyes, I think was, and also just get a feel of, is the place busy, is it chaotic, is it productive, what's the feeling like when you go in. And so he did that, and subsequently took the job. But I thought that was, to that point of culture fit, because you could be offered a really good salary and a good package and benefits, but if you're going to hate being there because actually the people that you're around are just so different to you, or you don't seem to gel with them, I'd question whether that's the right move, because as soon as you go there, you're going to have to start thinking about exiting because you'll spend 6 months there and it'll be torture. And so I think that's really important, and something that I think only over time, I guess with experience, I think, have I certainly realised how important that kind of culture is, and that almost the feel of the place. It's hard to articulate it, but I thought was an interesting method of checking a job is right for you. But I think it's a really important consideration because you're going to be spending a lot of time with people in that company.
Definitely. And I think it's a really valuable thing. Like employers can promise you X, Y, and Z in an interview, and it sometimes it doesn't materialize when you actually arrive. But going there and learning it, kind of getting a gut feeling, but it also gives you a chance to A, look at the building, what it's like. Is it, I don't know, is it nice? Is it workable? What's the location like? What's the commute like? Is there horrendous traffic? Is the trains a nightmare? Is connections difficult? Because you're basically signing yourself up with an employer to say, "I will work for you for X amount of hours per week," and it's a lot of hours in a week. So you have to be able to not tolerate, but it's I think it's not got to stress you too much. So another thing that I've learned to do, because I've had a job in the past where I've absolutely hated it. The commute's been terrible, and just the whole environment was just not good. And I vowed I'll never put myself in that position again. And this is another thing that having some kind of financial acumen gives you is you don't have to say yes to any job because you have the choice, you have the freedom. I mean, it might be nice, but if it's not perfect or everything, you can say no. It's not a one-way street. If you get offered a job, you then have a choice. You don't have to accept it. You can say no and give some reasons, or you don't have to give any reasons at all. But the other thing I always do is when I always ask, can I come and have a look round and as an informal visit before? Sometimes I ask before I bother applying and wasting your time and mine. Can I come and see what the team's like, what the commute's like, what the parking situation or the trains are like? And then I always travel at the same time as I would for a normal commuting day. So if I need to be there by 9 and it's half an hour, I'll leave my house at 8:30, gauge what the traffic is like, what the parking is like. Because if you go at midday and everything's empty and everything's lovely and there's loads of parking, etc., replicate that on a 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, and you can't find a parking space, and you're already stressed, and you're late on day one, and you're thinking this is not going to go well, and do I have to leave at 7 to get here at 9? And before you know it, that 40-hour a week job is costing you 50 hours in time just to get there. And it becomes like your true hourly rate, as we've discussed, it just goes down. And I think it's something that will eventually wear you out and you'll be looking for another job, like you say, within 6 months. So it's all part of that consideration. And you can do a lot of learning before you even accept a job. And I'm all for it. The more we know, the better.
Yeah, completely. And I think I think doing the commute at the time of your job starting and is really important, and a really good tip, because yeah, the reality of a commute, if your interview's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're probably going to be it'd be plain sailing. But yeah, as you said, if you think you can leave half an hour before to get to work, but actually the reality is you need to leave 90 minutes before because traffic is chaos, then that's a very different proposition. And I think, as you said, I think that's really good point with the more data points you've got before making a decision, the better. And there's ways of, you've been able to do that and verify it yourself. And yeah, not just focusing on I'm moving job because I get X increase in my salary. There's a lot more to it. And yeah, I think that's one. Commuting's a huge impact. It's huge.
There's a lot of nuance, obviously, to jobs, and everyone's job is different, etc. But I think that the more knowledge you have, the better informed you can be. And there's nothing, like absolutely nothing, stopping you applying for multiple jobs at once. I mean, people listening, you probably have applied for multiple jobs, but you can have interviews on the same day for similar fields if you can wangle that, and you can just compare, like, how do you feel in the morning within company number one with how you feel in the afternoon with company two. And when you have, like, you can get to the stage where you have multiple job offers, and then you have a bit more power in your hands to say, well, this first company is going to offer me this. Can company B match it? And then just go back and forth, and then say, well, actually, if we're already negotiated a salary that you're happy with, how about we chuck in a work from home day, or we add 2 extra days holiday off the bat, something like that. There's loads of things that you can negotiate, and a lot of people, I think, are a little bit afraid of being not abrupt, but a bit forward and just asking that. But the worst thing they could say is no, and the best thing they can say is yes, and you negotiate loads of salary. It'll guarantee you it'll be a bigger decision in your head than it will be the person making that decision. They won't think about it anywhere near as much as you at all. I mean, in terms, Alex, of negotiating salary, you don't strike me as someone who goes in at the bottom end of the range for salaries.
No, and I think I think it's about being realistic with, I think, moving roles, certainly when you change company, is going to be, there's a lot of upheaval. You're giving up a lot by going there. So it needs to be worth it needs to be worth moving. And it's, I think, having a good idea of what the market pays, and this is where recruiters can be good. Having a conversation with recruiters, looking at different kind of job specs, because I mean, you can go in and ask for some crazy numbers, and you can get laughed out of the room. But I think if you can put together almost a case of I'm asking for X salary, and the reason because of, the reason for that is, similar jobs are paying X, Y, Z. I've got this amount of experience, across different industries. Worked at senior levels, I've hired people, and this is where like the breadth of roles kind of comes in. It's like you're not just getting a person that's very good at doing one thing. It's almost like you're very malleable, and because, and it's like you want to go to the company for a long time and you're going to be a very useful asset for them. Therefore, I carry a lot of value, and hence that's my salary expectation. And I think as long as you can go and if you turn up and be like, oh, I want 25 grand a week because a Premier League footballer does, that doesn't really wash. But I think if you've done some research and have, spoken to different recruiters, and if you've got multiple offers on the table, that is a good position to be in. And, they will always offer a lower salary than like within the band, and you just have to, give your number, and then you'll probably meet in the middle somewhere. Um,
Definitely. And I think that's a key thing in negotiating. You're probably not going to get a yes straight off the bat. So be prepared for them to come back and say, like, if you ask for the salary bands between 40 and 50,000, say you ask for 50 off the bat, but you would accept 45, you can meet somewhere in the middle there. But I think another thing that I've used to my advantage is, at the end of an interview when they say, like, that's all the questions we have. Do you have any questions now? And it kind of, like, I imagine it like the light shifting.
mm,
When in the show He Wants to Be a Millionaire, all the lights dip
yeah,
down and they all
yeah.
focus on one thing. That's kind of how I imagine it. And you get kind of that ability to ask them questions and use their brain. And I always say to people, around that, I say, look, what problems do you currently have with the service you're running? What pain points do you have? And where I've worked in kind of substance misuse, where they had issues with like virus screening for hepatitis, and I know that inside and out. I've done it before. I've helped a previous team eliminate it in their local area. And that is when we're thinking about a bloodborne virus, not to get too technical, that is a hard thing to do. And because I had that experience and they said it, and I was like, oh my God, I know this.
Mm,
I can use this this is a huge thing now. And they say, we're having trouble with that. And I was like, right, I can evidence that I can do that for you. What I will need though is help. I'm not going to be able to do it solo.
mhm,
So I'll need the wider team to help me out, but I'm happy to lead it, and I'll help you over time turn this thing around. It's not going to happen on day one. It's probably not going to happen within 3 months, but you will see some upward mobility with that. And being able to say that, you've recognized that they've got a little gap that they need. And if you can fill that gap, or you believe you can learn to fill the gap, then that's a huge thing. And I say to them as well, like you want someone with experience to come in and just hit the ground running. You don't want to have to train me from the ground up. And that's something that if you can do that, say that you can do that.
mhm.
And it's just fitting with that culture, learning perhaps some new systems. And I feel like you're trying to make your future employers feel comfortable about having you in their team. And last thing on that is I do two extra things. One, I say sometimes at the end, if I'm confident in it and I'm gauging this as we go, by the time it gets to me asking questions, I would say like when we work within our team, like I'm already there and I
Yeah.
already exist. Um, and when I work with the team, like we, and
Mhm.
I don't use you and I use collective words. So our team, we, us, as a service, as a charity, or wherever you're at, as a company. I think it garners feelings of like togetherness, that we're in it together to solve these things, to raise each other up, to learn, etc. And I don't think it can do any harm at that point. And the last thing I say is, people ask me at the end, what is your salary expectation? And I'm like, okay, this is brilliant, because they're asking you for a figure. And what I always do is I'm aware of the bands in advance. I know what the top figure is to the pound, and I know what the bottom figure is to the pound. And I'll say, in my previous job, I earned the top end of that respective band. I feel like I bring enough value for that, so that is what I'd like. And they don't know you, that they don't know what your work is truly like, so they can't say, "Well, Alex, I don't think you bring enough value," because there's no metric to measure that against. And it's not failed me. All that happens at that point is there's a short pause, and then they write it down, and then they just move along.
Yeah.
And most of the time, and we're talking 90% here, they've rang me the next day, the next week, and said, if I've got the job, that is, they'll
Mm.
say, that's fine, you can have the job, no problem. We've agreed your salary with whoever. Um, it's yours if you'd like it. And I'll say, well, thank you very much, no problem. Appreciate your time, blah, blah, blah. The only time it's ever failed me is I always go at the top of the band, and I say those things about value. They come back to me and they said, we can't offer you the top of the band, but we can offer you £500 less. How would you feel about that? And I was like, oh, this is great. And inside, I'm doing cartwheels. I'm jumping for
Mm.
joy because
Yeah, yeah.
it's like an 8 grand pay rise for me.
Yeah.
But outwardly, I would say, well, thank you very much. I would find that acceptable. I would like a salary review in 3 months once I'm halfway through my probation. And it's just, instead of waiting 6 months for that review, you shorten that time by 3 months, and you get then 3 months extra salary. And again, it's kind of like you're meeting your employer in the middle, but you're getting exactly what you want sooner than expected.
I like that idea a lot about shortening like having a salary review partway through
Mm,
probation. I think that's really good. Um,
yeah.
I heard something. It's a really. I can't remember but I was listening to an audiobook and I can't remember which one. But it was um talking about, rather than you being like almost giving everything to your employer, think of it as you have the skills, you're the person that's employable, and your company or employer is leasing those skills from you. And so, and I think it's helpful to flip it, especially flip it in that kind of mindset of, no, I'm the one in charge here. And I think ultimately it's when you've got, if you've got a new job offer on the table or something, and you find and they may offer you the job. There's no obligation to take it. If you don't get the right feel and you've done that analysis of, okay, I've looked at all these different considerations and it doesn't feel right, just because it's on the table doesn't mean you need to take it. And it's like, I can take my skills elsewhere and do something different. I can for a different employer. And I just think that was a quite useful way of thinking about it, and almost treating it a bit like I'm supplying a business rather than you're owned by that company now. I feel is quite a thing. And I would just add, just as we wrap up, just around if you do change employer, I would always recommend leaving on good terms with your old employer. Um, Quite often, the industry is very small, and what goes around comes around generally. And I think you always want to have that ability to go back and work for your old employer. If you were to um, kind of reapply, I've seen it work on both sides where people have burnt all the bridges and would um, never be looked at again or considered again to be hired by the company. And I've also seen it where good people have left on good terms, and it's like, oh, it's such a shame to lose that person. They did a really good job, or they still refer to their work when you're there. And I think I'd much rather be in the bucket where it's like you've left on good terms and you've made handover easy. I never feel there's a downside to doing that, because I think it's a bit short-sighted if you're like, well, I've finished now, I'm going to be logging off at 2 o'clock and not doing any work, or not doing any work until I've finished my notice period. I don't think that helps anybody.
No, I'd absolutely agree. There's a big difference between a nice handover and good graces than flipping tables and storming out 100%. And you might think, I think you're absolutely right that the circles that you would work in, people do talk and people know people. So loosely, you'll be connected to someone who works in another company via a mutual colleague, a mutual friend, someone else you've worked with. And you never know if you do burn those bridges, that the one of those people that's been impacted might interview you for a job in a couple of years' time, and they'll probably remember the theatrics around it. The only other thing I want to say is the book by Ali Abdal about like productivity, because he mentions a lot about your personal capital and the skills you have, and you're leasing or selling them back to your employer.
No, I don't think it was that one.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I honestly can't remember where I could have read it or listened to it. But the sentiment either way was.
It's come from somewhere, but it's a good way of pointing out, isn't it? Like you have that unique skill set that you might share with somebody, and I don't know, say hundreds of people have your exact accountancy skill set and the corporate treasury bit as well, but not all of those people will be looking for a job at the same time as you. So you're not actually competing with a huge amount of people, and the more skills you have, the more unique your skill set is, the less competition there are for jobs. And if you're applying for a job that literally anybody can do, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants.
Mhm.
If you're applying for a job that is a little bit niche and it involves all of the skills that you've had building up in your career and your industry, you might find yourself, instead of competing against thousands of people, you might be competing against 10. And then it's thinking about how you can stand out to those people. And I guarantee you, if you go to an interview and there's 10 people in there and you're the only one that sits in a triangle and moves desks, you're going to get remembered.
Mhm.
It's not, you're not just going to become one of the other 9 people. It'll be, oh, remember Tom, that guy asked us to move desks. Because yeah, it's another memorable thing. It keeps you kind of in their thoughts. Okay. Um, any other thoughts, Alex, on changing jobs?
No, I think probably, yeah, just in summary, it's really, I think it can be a really good step to a good idea to do that. I think it's just making sure that you're going to get the right development opportunities when you
Mm,
go there, that there's, future potential to grow, and not just focusing on that salary number, like think about it in the round. I think, as you said at the beginning, it's these jobs where you come out of school, you on a Friday, you are in the the job on a Monday and you work there till you're 65 just do not exist anymore. So it's a reality of the kind of the corporate world and the business world that we live in. And I think underlying all of it is about continuing to develop yourself and developing your skill set, getting that broad experience so you become more valuable. And you're, changing jobs is a proactive move, not a reactive one, and that you're, I guess, considering all the right things when you go to make that choice is my my 2 cents.
No, I entirely agree. And I think the more you do it, the more uncomfortable situations you put yourself in, the more you'll grow and the less anxiety you will experience. It's nowhere near worth the level of anxiety that perhaps a job interview will give you. And if you are following this path and you are kind of learning about money and you're now saving some and you're investing some and it's you haven't got letters of bills, overdue bills coming through the door, it gives a little bit of that peace to your soul of actually I can go for this job and I don't have to take it and I don't have to
Yeah,
start at the bottom of the salary band. It just gives you so many more options. So what I would ask of our kind of audience and community is if you have any stories of you changing jobs and successfully negotiating or any tips and tricks you have, do email them to us. And if we get some really good ones, we'll Alex and I will include them in an episode. Or if you want to come on and talk to us about it and you think either we're way off or you've got a different technique or a different strategy, you're more than welcome to do that. We'll arrange it. Email us at nursingyourwaytowealth@gmail.com. This has been episode 40. It's a bit crazy to think that we've done 40 episodes now. It's come around really, really quickly. We'll soon be at the half century mark. And yeah, we'll keep going. Give us some feedback, just like Paul did last week. We like to hear from you, and we'll feature the reviews in the episodes as well. And with that, enjoy kind of the week that you're doing. Be kind to yourself, and if you can, be kind to someone else too.
perfect way to end it.
None of what we discuss on the show is to be considered financial or health advice, and we recommend you always do your own research or consult an independent financial advisor or a doctor when making your financial or health decisions.